You're watching The Good Frontend Show, a podcast that gives you a weekly dose of inspiration and insights from GFED's technology leaders and engineers. Join us as we explore ideas that enable technologists, marketers, and organizations create successful commerce storefronts. Let's begin.
Hi, my name is Carl. I'm one of the co-founders of Good Frontend. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of front-end architects. So you're an advocate for front-end architecture.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it's a good idea for brands and retailers to have a front-end architect in-house?
In my experience, having implemented a few projects using headless commerce, using composable commerce, the projects that do best are projects where you have a front-end architect looking after the project. If you think about headless commerce, composable commerce, microservices, front-end architects really are in the best place to guide the team to know what they are doing. Firstly, APIs really are designed to serve other developers, mainly front-end developers. So historically, we did everything in the back end. For example, we have this technology called Spring, and we had something called MVC, the Model View Controller. And the idea was to separate the model, the view, and the controller. And developers would create this model that comes from the database. The controller would then manipulate this data and then present it to the view. Of course, there were a lot more different versions of this before MVC came about, but MVC was a big deal when it came out. And that was great for front-end developers because that meant that we could own the view, the presentation layer, which is presented to the customer. Over time, however, as front-end matured, we realized that we needed more control. We needed more control over the performance of the application. We needed more control over the search engine optimization. We needed more control to how dynamic and animated pages are. We wanted to do single-page applications. We wanted to take over the website routing and so on. And so the conversation began and someone came up with the idea of why don't we just provide you an API and you can do whatever you want. We just give you the data and you can do whatever you want. And there, APIs were born. That was designed to serve front-end developers so that they can have more flexibility to be able to do the things that they want. And so when we think about things like headless commerce, composable commerce, APIs, these are all designed to cater for those developers who care more about the view, the presentation layer, to consume those APIs. So when it comes to projects, they are best placed to do those types of projects.
So you're saying it's a lot to do with their technical experience in front end?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to those types of projects, headless commerce, composable commerce, there's not much experience required from the SaaS perspective. Because the idea of SaaS is to eliminate the custom code, eliminate the person that sits behind that code and turn it into a product. So the expertise required for that side of things is no longer required. The SaaS product now does that expertise. And so the only person really here that is most important, if you like, is the one consuming those products and creating that experience that is served to the customers.
But why in-house? Why not just bring in a consultant to do the job?
That's a good question. Just before we were planning to do this podcast, I was thinking, should we add this word in-house or should we just make it as a generic front-end architect? How important they are in the role. But I would say that every organization should aspire to have a front-end architect in-house. I know that they can often be quite rare to find, but that should be an aspiration for every brand. And I say that because this role is growing, this space is growing, and you want to be able to retain that knowledge in-house, and you want someone advocating for your brand. Of course, there are consultants that can help brands and retailers like ourselves, right? We're front-end architects, we can help them, we can help drive their roadmap, we can help them with best practices, technical oversight and all the things that are important. But when it comes to what is the minimum technical team that you want to keep in-house, I do think that a front-end architect should be one of them. Just because of the scope of work that needs to have a level of governance, if you like.
How do they enable teams to move quicker?
Front-end architects, I would say that they have 3 primary roles when it comes to their job description. Firstly, as I already mentioned, is technical oversight. So they enable teams to move quicker because the oversight is there. For example, they should be the ones responsible for component reusability and brand consistency. So when you think about the components in the website, often people think, why does this look so different from that page to another and the spacing is not there? I think that's because of lack of attention to front-end architecture. And that is one of the things that front-end architects should be doing. They oversight the non-functional requirements like Lighthouse reports. Now, kindly, Google has produced these metrics that allows us to do our jobs a lot easier because it automatically does an audit to your website. So they should be responsible for that. And also they are responsible for API integration approaches. So they allow teams to move quicker because they provide this overarching oversight of how things should be done. If you think about, again, the scope of work that needs to be done in projects such as headless and composable, there is a lot of things that needs to be thought about. But a lot of that ultimately needs to be integrated and served to the customer as a single customer experience that is fully integrated. And for you to have a website that feels like it's together, you really need to have that level of technical oversight. It's a full-time job. I don't think many people realize that. It's a full-time job, and many projects fail because they don't have a person performing that role. The other thing that I would say about this matter, in terms of how they allow teams to move quicker, is that front-end architects, they ought to be the bridge between the technical teams and the product designers, the UI UX teams. Front-end role is quite vast. You have front-end developers who are quite brand-oriented. You have front-end developers who are quite technically minded. You have front-end developers who are pretty good at marketing and so on, but front-end architects, the idea is that they have an overarching understanding of all these concerns. And so it enables them to be the bridge for different parts of the organization, the technical side of the organization and the non-technical side of the organization. And finally, it's also about having someone who can be a soundboard for technology adoption. Front-end is a very fast-moving place. We have frameworks every 6 months. It's the running joke that we have. We always have new frameworks. We have React, but on top of React, we have a bunch of frameworks like Next.js. You've got Astro, you've got Remix. And just when you think things are booming, Create React Up gets sunsetted, Remix gets bought out, Next.js gets funding, and so everything changes every 6 months. You need someone to be able to understand how to predict the future, so to speak, based on existing patterns that are already happening. And being able to do that will allow you to adopt technology at the right time without wasting time. And so when it comes to teams, a lot of them get stuck because one, they either adopt technology too late, or the other one, on the other end of the extreme, is they adopt technology too early. There is no formal wisdom in terms of choosing when to do certain things. And those technology adoption decisions, because there is no front-end architect, happens at a much lower level and can often be detrimental when it's the wrong choice. The classic example, right? Many people do nowadays micro front-end architecture. And then they think it's the bee's knees, it's such a great idea. Yeah, let's bring microservices to the front end. By the way, I an advocate of micro front end. In a way, we have used it in multiple projects, but I'm just saying this because many people fail when they adopt this architecture, right? Because they take on this architecture and then they read a bunch of blogs and they think they can do it, and then they put on Webpack module federation, and then all of a sudden it's not working, and no one in the team can solve it. And so you Google online and you see people selling solutions to this specific problem. So what I would say is that if you had a front-end architect, those problems would not happen. I'm working on a project right now where we're using micro front end, and it's perfectly fine. You know, we've come up with a wonderful strategy of understanding what is composed on runtime and what is composed on build time, and it's quite performant. We are able to scale teams, you know, in their 30s, 40s, and so on, and we are able to produce work a lot faster. And again, that is just down to proper thinking and planning and architecture of how the systems are built, especially on the front end, which is, in a composable project, is probably 75% of the effort required to make things happen.